everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we're really excited today. We love talking with authors here on the podcast. And today we have the author of the new book, The Holiday Bake Off. We have Lindsay Detwiler here. And Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So what we like to do with our new guests is get a chance to get to know you and tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start writing.
Yeah, so I, like a lot of writers, loved books as a child. I grew up dreaming of being an author, but thinking that wasn't really something that could happen for a small town girl like me. So it wasn't until college that I got really serious about writing. I was taking this class called The Literature of Health and Healing. It was a college class all about people who didn't have a lot of time left. And it was a class about chasing your dreams and making the most of this life we have. And for me, that class reminded me that my biggest dream was to write a book. So I went home from that class one night and I started writing what would become my first published novel, Voice of Innocence.
Wow.
It took me years and years to write it and years to get picked up, but that was back in 2015. And it really just proved to me that childhood dreams can come true, that I could become an author. I could see my name on the cover of a book. And from there, the stories just kept coming to me and I kept writing. And so here we are, many books later, and just living out my childhood dream.
So were you always interested in romance fiction?
So in junior high and high school, especially, I loved Nicholas Sparks. Favorite
Oh,
author, was obsessed with all of his work. The Notebook is still my favorite movie. And
so
so
you
I
like
think
the
that,
Weepies. You like the
yes,
ones
for
making you
sure.
cry.
And I
Yeah.
think that's really what inspired me to write my first romance and what really inspired me to get into the romance genre. I've always loved love stories. Those are always my favorites. And so that's kind of where I got started. I did in 2018 write my first thriller. And so I do now write thriller under LA Detwiler as well. But romance always will hold a special place in my heart. It's one of the things I love to write and I love to read. So,
Yeah, I saw that you've done some
mhm,
different genres. You've done thriller, tearjerker,
mhm.
rom-com. And what's that like? Is that do you find you have to really change your writing approach and how you
Yeah.
uh how you write the books?
Yeah, so for me, writing has always been a passion project. It's always been about writing the story that haunts me. So whether
Mm-hmm.
that is romance or thriller, horror or rom-com, I always just let the story speak to me and what story I want to tell. I don't worry so much about boxing myself in, which has been really fun as a writer. And I do love the challenge of flipping from genres. I love the challenge of writing a romance and then digging into a creepy creature horror. But for me, the one thing that kind of translates across all genres is that I really try to dig into realistic characters. I want to bring characters to the page that feel real, that feel emotional, that don't feel censored. It feels like they're people you could know in real life. And I also really like to cover difficult, heavy topics. Even in my rom coms, I try to cover topics that are realistic and emotional. So whether that's happening in horror or thriller or, like I said, rom com, I really try to make sure my writing is emotional and genuine and feels like you know the characters by the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you find that that particular genre is more difficult, or they all have their own
Yeah, I
challenges?
think they all have their own challenges. I think for romance, one of the challenges is you do want to give your readers that satisfying ending, that
Yeah,
happily ever
happy
after,
ending.
usually, but you want it to be in a realistic way. So that is
Hmm.
challenging of how you get there. How do you still bring that emotion and depth, but in a way that can still feel fun and lighthearted? So that's the
Hmm.
challenge for me in romance. And then I think thriller and horror brings its own challenges with the genre of exciting plots, of figuring out how to make the twists work in a way that, again, feels realistic. So they all
Hmm.
have their challenges, but they also all have their benefits too and their shining spots. I love romance because you really get to dig into the characters and showcase that growth in not only the individuals, but the couple. That's always my favorite part, is showing that growth throughout the story.
Yeah. So romance is totally having like its moment right now in
Mhm.
publishing. It's just really doing well. And why do you think it is? Why do you think that the romance and all its different genres is so popular right now?
I think it's just such an escape from a very difficult time in a difficult world. I think it's a really beautiful thing to be reminded that love can still prevail, that love can change you. And even in your darkest moments, there's always that hope that a connection, that a moment can change everything for you. That's what I always really like to read in romance. And so I think that's part of the draw to the genre, at least for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I saw on your website you said that a real issue in the romance world was that many of the romances celebrated love stories of fantasy. What do you
Mm-hmm.
mean by that?
Yeah, so for me, from that first book, I've always wanted women, especially, to see themselves in my characters and in the relationships I portray. I'm married to the man I met in seventh grade. We were 12 years old when we met, and we've grown
Oh my
up
gosh.
together as we've grown together. And I think really, to me, it's important to showcase realistic romance. So most of us in our daily lives are not able to be whisked away to an expensive island or on this fancy vacation. Most of us aren't like some of the romance stories we see, having these big, grandiose moments all of the time. In real life, it's about who's taking the trash out on Wednesday or
Mm-hmm.
eating pizza in your sweatpants. And I wanted women to see their own love stories in my books. I wanted them to realize that it doesn't have to be this grandiose thing of fantasy to be special, that the
Mm-hmm.
average everyday love stories can be beautiful too. So a lot of my romance focuses on that idea that love doesn't have to be perfect. And the thing of movies, it can be the everyday moments that really make it special.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind the scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies. Is it hard to get that escapism if it's more grounded?
It can be for
Yeah.
sure. I think that that is difficult, but I still think there's those moments, and for me, I think those moments come in the everyday jokes you have with your significant other, those little tiny moments, those times he remembers something. So I think it can come in the small moments, and that's really what I wanted to do with romance, was remind people of that the small moments really do matter, that imperfect love is still beautiful and worth celebrating.
So a book like The Holiday Bake Off is pretty squeaky clean.
Mhm.
Is it more challenging to have to build up the chemistry and everything without including this theme, or is it just depends on the book?
I think it just depends on the book. For me, I've always been in the sweet romance side of things and the
Mm,
squeakier clean side of things because, again, I think it's, as a writer, I like to focus on the more emotional connection. So for me, I've never had an issue writing that. But
mm,
there definitely are times where it can be difficult to showcase that connection in a way
yeah.
that feels genuine. So I
Hmm.
always really have to work at that. In some books more than others, some books lend
Hmm.
themselves to that more than others. But for me, that's always been what I've enjoyed writing. So I feel
Hmm.
pretty comfortable on that side of the genre.
Would you say you're a pantser or a plotter?
I am definitely more of a plotter now. I would say when I
Okay.
started, I was more of a pantser because I didn't really know what I was doing. My first book, I didn't even expect it to get anywhere. So I was definitely just going with it just to see if I could write the first book. Now I'm more of a plotter. I would say I outline pretty heavily to start. And then I do kind of go with the flow as I'm writing. Things will change a lot from that initial plan, as I'm getting to know the characters and telling the story. I definitely give myself that flexibility too.
Yeah. So your first book, how did you make that happen? I'm always curious.
Yeah.
without
So
the connections and stuff? Like,
yeah,
how
it was
did
a
you?
crazy story actually. So I started writing that book, like I said, from the college class. I actually started writing it in a notebook, and that notebook's actually on the shelf right up here. It's
No,
in
no
my
way.
writing area. I still have it. What's funny to me is I started writing what would become the first few pages of the book that night on my parents' deck. And if you look at it, it's almost identical to what my published novel is, the first few book or few pages. It didn't change that much in editing, which is really like a special thing for me to think. Like
Yeah.
that 20 something girl sat down and just started writing, and that would become a book. It took me a few years. I would come back to my writing just over the summers because I was in college. I told myself it was crazy to write this story, that nothing would happen to it. I tried to talk myself out of writing it, to be honest, but I kept coming back to it. I don't know why. It just kept haunting me. Took me a few years to write it. When I got finished with it, I was married, and my husband encouraged me, like, hey, why don't you just try sending it to someone? You never know. I had no idea what I was doing. I started researching publishers. I didn't know anything about agents or self publishing. I just started looking up publishers. I found a small publisher to send it to, several, got some rejections, which I expected. And then one day I got a yes from a small publisher that was romance focused. I was so stressed out because I had no idea what I was doing. I knew nothing about the publishing industry. I was actually terrified. I wasn't even
Yeah.
excited. I was just terrified. But I was finally getting ready to tell people, like, oh, I got my book picked up. My dream's going to come true. About a month into the process, we were starting cover design. We were getting ready for edits. I got the email that no author wants to get. The company went bankrupt and they were
Oh my gosh.
I was devastated because here's this dream I wanted but thought wouldn't happen. Then I kind of had it and now it was gone. So I was sobbing. My husband came home
Oh.
from work and he convinced me, though, that you know what, you got this book picked up one time, it will get picked up again, try again. So I picked myself up, sent the book out again to some more publishers, and this time it stuck. It got picked up by Melange Books, their satin romance line. They're a small publisher, which was fantastic for me my first time around because they really like held my hand through the process, taught me about publishing, taught me what words like ARC meant, which I didn't even know at the time, taught me
Oh.
how the editing process worked. So I learned so much from them. When I got my first book published, I didn't even have like author social media set up. I didn't have a website. I was starting from scratch. So I really learned a lot from the first publisher. And from there, then I just kept writing. And I found another publisher who was a little bit bigger and who I spent most of my writing time with, and just kept kind of growing and learning from there and learning new things. Eventually found my way to an agent. So it was definitely a learning process. And it's been really fun to do that.
That's great that you
Yeah.
stuck it out because that would be
Yeah.
so discouraging. Oh,
Oh, it was. And I love to tell that story now, though, because
yeah,
I hope it's encouraging to other authors
yeah,
that not only will you face rejection, you're going to face all kinds of crazy rejections, but you do just have to keep going.
yeah, yeah. Well, was it hard figuring out? Okay, so you got the first one, figuring
Mhm.
out, okay, what am I going to write about next?
Yeah, I didn't even know if I would write another one. So when I got the first one published, I said, okay, I've achieved my dream. Maybe this is it. Maybe I'll just write one. But then I remember being in the shower actually, and this idea for my second book popped into my head, and it was the same thing as the first one, where it just was the story that haunted me. It was a story about these three people in this town. It would become my second book, Without You. And it was the same thing where I tried to talk myself out of writing it. I was like,
Mhm.
no, you already wrote one book. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. That's how it's been my whole career. Every time I write a book, I'm like, well, maybe this will be the last idea. Maybe this will be it. And then another idea comes to me that won't let me
Yeah.
be until I write it. So
What's it like for you when you have like your husband, your family, your friends, if they read the books? Is that nerve-wracking?
it's so nerve-wracking to me. Yes,
Yeah.
I have over 20 books published and I still get nervous. Like when the Holiday Bake Off came out yesterday and people said, I bought your book, I'm reading it. It still makes you nervous because no matter what, even at this point, there's so much of yourself that goes into that book, even just little moments, little ways you see the world. And so it is a very vulnerable craft. And so that's always a little scary, but it's also an exciting scary.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I noticed that you had a bunch of books set in Maryland on the yeah. So you said you're from Pennsylvania? Is
I
that right?
am.
Yeah, okay. I grew up in Maryland, so
Oh, did you?
yeah, yeah. Frederick County.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was
So,
always our family vacation to Ocean City, Maryland from the time I was like 3
ah,
years old. So I've always had a special place for Ocean City. I love it there. And so that's definitely found its way
yeah.
into a lot of my books.
The nice thing about Maryland is it's such a small state, and yet it has kind of a little bit of everything. It's got
For
ocean,
sure.
it's got big city, it's got
Yeah,
country, it's got mountains. It's kind of
mhm,
got a little bit of everything for how small it
absolutely.
is. Yeah, which is nice. Which is nice. It was a nice place to grow up. But all right, let's talk about the Holiday Bake Off new
Yeah.
book. Very exciting. Your first for Harper's Road. It
Mhm.
must have been fun working with
Oh, so
Jenny and
exciting.
everybody.
It's been so fun working with Harpeth Road. I love what they stand for and how committed they are to romance and sweet romance, and they're just wonderful. So it's been so exciting.
It's been so neat because I remember when she first started, because she's been on our podcast many times, and it was like, oh, it's just little imprint I'm doing,
Yeah.
and I don't even know if she was going to have other authors when she first
Mhm.
started, maybe, but and it was just this little thing. Oh, I'm just doing this on the side, and
Uh-huh.
it's just become this amazing thing,
I
and so many
know.
great books.
Yeah. It's so
Yeah.
exciting to be a part of. So,
And she's really like nurturing other writers, which I just love
mhm.
to see, and it's just a cool thing.
It really is. It's
Hmm.
wonderful.
Yeah. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the good folks at Harpeth Road Press and bestselling author Jenny Hale and her new book, Noel Bridge. They say there's a covered bridge that heals the sick and mends the broken. Actual miracles have happened within its green clapboard protective shell. When Alicia Silver faces spending her first Christmas without her fiance who has passed away, she knows that the only way she can manage through the season is if she has a little divine intervention. So she heads to snowy Smoky Mountains to visit that bridge, hoping to reach her fiance somehow. But she isn't expecting to encounter Leo Whitaker when she gets there, a heartwarming holiday getaway that will have you believing in the power of love. If you enjoyed the Christmas movies based on Jenny's books and are searching for more feel-good small-town romance, look no further. That's Noel Bridge, and you can purchase it wherever you purchase your Christmas books or use the affiliate link below. That's Noel Bridge by Jenny Hale. So, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about the Holiday Bake Off? What's it about?
Yeah. So this one was really fun. It's my first Christmas book I've written, actually. I'd been wanting to write a Christmas romance for a long time, and then these characters came to me. So Lucy Carter is a writer. She lives in the city. She thinks she has life figured out, and then things start to hit rock bottom. A breakup, a call from her grandma just kind of changes everything and changes the course of where she thinks life is heading. So she ends up, after this phone call, having to go to Star Creek. It's where her grandma lives. Her grandma has this adorable little bakery that's been in the family for generations. And Lucy ends up, through a series of events, having to help her grandma with the town's big tradition, which is the Holiday Bake Off. It's this huge festival in town. Think gazebos and snow and all kinds of cool vendors and baked goods, of course. So she ends up staying longer than expected to help with this bake off. And in the meantime, of course, enter stage left Will Westerly, this handsome baker who has also found his way to Star Creek through a series of tragedies and events. Really, the book is about Lucy and Will are two broken people at the beginning of the story. They're lost, they're confused, they've been through heartbreak, they've kind of sworn off love. But then through this town's big tradition, they come together to help kind of save the tradition, and they start to open up to each
Mhm.
other and realize they maybe aren't done with love completely. It's really a story, like I said, about two broken people finding each other, but it's also a story about family because you're going to see that Will and Lucy are very dedicated to their family and to making sure their family's okay. So there's that big element to it. And it also pulls in the idea of grief during the holidays, that the holidays are this beautiful, magical time, but they can also bring a lot of hardship too. So it's how do you navigate that and still carry out the family tradition? So there's a whole lot rolled into this book. It was so fun writing it, and I'm so excited for readers to finally get to meet the characters.
Yeah, it was really cute. So was this town, was it based on any place in particular when you were writing?
I live in a very small town in
Okay.
Pennsylvania, so there are definitely elements of our hometown mixed into it. Like I can tell you, in our town, right after Thanksgiving, we have this tree lighting festival, right down in the center of our town. It's called the Diamond, and almost the entire town comes out. They have soup sampling, they have all kinds of vendors and hot chocolate. It's just like this big magical moment. So that's kind of was a little bit of the inspiration for the holiday bake off. And then there's just some little elements from our town, like the bakery, the bookstore, just those that cute little small town feel definitely came from where I grew up.
Now, Lucy is really close with her grandmother. Was that something that you pulled from your own experience with? Were you close with your
Yeah, there
grandma?
definitely are some elements of my grandma and my grandma's story in this book, especially the baked goods that she bakes. So there's a cookie in the book that's the snowball cookie that is based on my grandma. She used to bake those all the time.
Oh,
She was completely Polish, so she had a Polish cookbook, and those are in that cookbook. So every
oh, that's
Christmas,
cool.
that was one of the cookies she would make. And then that was a cookie I made with my mom, and I continue to make to this day every Christmas. So
I
some
love
of
that.
like the baked goods and the holiday traditions are
Hmm.
definitely from real life.
Yeah, my grandma passed away well, both my grandmas actually passed away in 2019. And, my grandma on my dad's side, I was especially close to, and she really was one of my best friends.
Aw.
And, and she's the one who first introduced me to like musical theater and would
Oh,
take me
that's
to the
amazing.
theater and get me cast recordings and things like that. And she loved like I just find myself thinking about her all the time. Like whenever I go see anything with tap dancing, she loved tap dancing
Aw.
or even like little things like she just loved good food. And
Yeah.
when you would hear her like give a travelogue because she traveled all the time, and she would be like, "Well, we went to this bakery and we had
Aw.
we had a great muffin," and she would tell
Aw.
the story of her trip by the food that she
That's great. Aw.
just things like that. And I
Yeah.
just think there's something special about our connection with our grandparents, or at
Mhm.
least certainly can be,
Yes.
because the thing that's I think most special about grandparents is they don't have the burden of parenting. So
Mhm.
their whole role is just to love,
Yes. I
you
think that's
know?
a good way of
And
putting it. Yeah.
yeah, and so it's so nice to have like one person in your life who just loves you.
Mhm.
That's their whole
For
job.
for sure.
And I think that's what makes them so special
Yeah.
in if everything's working as it should, of course. And I was
Yeah.
grateful for for my grandma, and because she was just the best. And I think
Aw.
you could connect that with this relationship between Lucy and her
Mhm.
grandma.
For sure. Yes. They
Yeah.
definitely have that bond, and it's definitely, like you said, all love between them. So it
Hmm.
was a really fun relationship to write about for sure.
Yeah. Well, and like the minute she hears, "Oh, you're in the hospital, I'm getting in my car
Yeah.
right now." Because she has this big trip to Paris planned, and that she's gonna spend a month in Paris and everything,
Yeah.
and immediately she's like, "Nope, I'm coming home."
Yeah, it really shows you how much she means to her. And I think that's what I
Yeah.
like about Lucy's character is even though she's lost and confused and struggling with her own stuff, she always puts family first. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things she sticks to through the entire book. And it creates some conflict for her too, because there
Mm-hmm.
comes a point where you do have to think about your own dreams. And so it definitely creates conflict, but she definitely is true to her family and what they mean to her.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that like developing both Lucy and Will as characters? Did you do like a character map of kind of like, okay, this is what I want to happen with these characters?
Yes, and some of it too just happened organically as I started thinking about who Will is and what he's been through and who Lucy is and what she's been through. And they've been through similar plights in some ways. So it was kind of interesting that when I started putting them together to realize they weren't a perfect couple at first. At the beginning of the
Mhm.
book, there's a lot of tension because they kind of
Yeah.
they're a mirror to each other, basically. They remind each other of what's going wrong in their own lives. And when you put
Yeah.
that much hurt together in a small space like the bakery's kitchen, it doesn't
Hmm.
always go well at first.
Yeah.
And so
It's a
it's
little
really,
enemies to lovers, like just a
yeah,
little bit. Yeah.
yeah, and it
Which is
was really
fun.
fun to explore that and explore how they work through that and how actually
Hmm.
that tension does help them overcome some of their own obstacles. So it was really fun to watch those characters develop out. And I just really loved both of them,
Hmm.
from the beginning, but especially by the end as you go through the story and see what they've been through and see who they are as people and see
Yeah.
where they are together. I really love them as a couple.
were you at all worried about sort of embracing the city girl coming back to the country? This like trope that's done so often
I
in
was.
these
I think that,
stories.
yeah, that is always definitely a fear of mine. I always want to make sure my writing feels different and genuine and gives readers an exciting experience. But on the same token, I feel like it's a battle so many of us face in some respect. So many of us struggle with that. Oh, we want this like big city life, but yet we feel called to our roots or to our family. And how do you kind of make that all work? So to me, it felt like a very genuine problem most of us come across at some point in our lives of wanting to different lifestyles. So I felt like it was an organic, natural way to showcase that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like tropes become like a dirty word, but it's really not. It's just a type of storytelling that has been done a lot, and it's what you do with it.
Yeah,
And it's done
sure.
a lot because it works and people like it, And so what do
People
you
can
do with it?
relate to it too. So that was really
Mhm.
important to me as well. And I think there's definitely different facets to Lucy's story, as far as the city girl going back, because she still has that city girl in her, even back home
Uh-huh.
or back in
Yeah.
Star Creek. So I definitely think she doesn't lose all of that. It's just how is she going to rationalize that with this life she's finding herself in? So
Yeah. Yeah. So would you consider yourself a sweets person?
a what? I'm
A
sorry.
sweets person? Do you like
Oh, yes. I
yeah.
have a mega sweet tooth. It probably shines through in this book. It's part of the reason I love reading this book. I
Yeah.
felt like anytime I get a cupcake or anything now, I'm like, oh, it's just book research. I
Yeah,
can
that's right.
Oh
I can
yeah, mega
expense it.
sweet tooth. That is my weakness for sure.
Yeah. Well, if you're in a bakery, what's your go-to order? Are you getting cake, pie,
All of
cookie,
it.
brownie?
No. I am a cookie person. I
A
cannot
cookie,
resist
okay.
a cookie. I cannot have cookies in the house or I eat all of them. In fact, yesterday on book launch day, I got the chance to go to Crumble Cookie, which is my
Oh, yeah.
favorite place ever. Got the whole variety pack, told myself they'd last all week. They're not. They're gone. I've eaten them all. I have such a weakness for cookies.
Yeah, yeah. Those are good. I do like them. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I see, I always say that like I am probably if I can get really good pie, then I'm a pie
Ooh,
person.
okay.
But but I would always pick like I think that average cake is much better than average pie.
That's a
Does
good
that, you know what
point.
I'm saying? So like
Yeah.
really good pie is better than any other kind of cake,
Yeah.
but like there's
Yeah.
a big drop off point for me.
Yes, for sure. What's your favorite kind of pie?
My favorite, well, I do love lemon meringue, but it has to be
Okay.
really lemony. Like I like it
Okay.
strong.
Do you like to bake? Do you make your own pies?
Well, no, I have never been able to get pie crust. I have
Okay.
never been able to get it, but I've used like, you know,
Well,
pre-made
yeah.
pie crust and I've made pies before and they were edible. I make a decent like white bread. I make a decent cookie, like chocolate cookie. The
Okay.
key
Oh,
to making the best cookies is to just cook them a tiny bit under.
I agree with you. I
Yeah,
agree with you.
and so then they're just
Absolutely.
gooey and
Yep.
you take it
For
like a minute earlier than you think. Not a ton, just a little. And so, oh,
yes,
that makes
I absolutely agree with
so
you.
good. But yeah, I mean, I definitely have a sweet tooth myself, so I get it. And there's this one place where by me that I'm not normally a chocolate on chocolate person. I like a
Mhm.
little bit of a break to the chocolate, but there's this place by me that makes this chocolate cake that is so good.
Oh, it sounds
Chocolate on
good.
chocolate, and it is just to die for.
That
So
sounds
yeah, really
fantastic.
good. Yeah. But I don't know if there's anything better than a hot, gooey chocolate chip cookie.
Yes, for sure. It
That
has to be
is
warm. Yes,
the best.
that's the best. Agreed.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back to crumble.
Also, the Trader Joe's. I don't know if you have Trader Joe's by
Oh, yes.
you,
Yes, we
but
do.
their chantilly vanilla sheet cake
Okay. I've
is
never had that.
you've
So,
got to try it. I mean, all the sheet cakes are really, really good,
okay.
but especially that vanilla one is so good.
Okay. I'm adding
Yeah.
that to my
Yeah.
list.
They have a pumpkin one right now.
Ooh,
That's
that
really,
sounds
yeah.
good too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. So it's good. But I mean, it was interesting, the whole thing about Paris. I thought that was an interesting dynamic because on one hand, you don't really want her to like stop experiencing things just because she happened to have fallen in love, right? Like you want her to go to
Yes.
Paris, you want her to things, but like I kind of liked that she goes there and she's just kind of like, oh, I want to be
Yeah.
home, you know?
Yeah.
It was an interesting kind of way to handle it. Like she still did it, she didn't let it stop her, but she kind of shortened it.
Yeah, love changes you sometimes, and love, I think, changes your dreams, and that's really a lot of what
Yeah.
this book is about. That's not necessarily a bad thing if your dreams
Hmm.
change. I think sometimes we get into this idea that we have to have everything figured out. We have to do X, Y, and Z in this path, and we can't change that. But sometimes you get to that dream you thought was going to make you happy, and you realize it's not your dream anymore. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of what this book is about for all the characters. They all kind of thought they wanted one thing, and then maybe it shifts a little bit. And I think
Yeah.
that too is so true, especially in my 30s. I found a lot of friends who feel the same way, that maybe the life they thought they wanted isn't exactly making them happy anymore, and they need to make a shift or change things up. Maybe not drastically, but at least a little bit. And I
Yeah.
hope it gives people permission to do that.
Yeah, I can see that. And it was nice having her friend still in the city
Mhm.
that she could kind of connect back with and be like, "Oh, wow, I'm changing here." Or, this is it. I
Yeah,
thought that was a smart dynamic to have.
thank you.
Yeah. That it kind of helped you see her whole character arc.
Mhm.
Because yeah, you definitely don't want it to be like, "Wow, she just gave up everything for this dude that
Yeah,
she's known for 5 minutes." But
yeah, for
like
sure.
she didn't. But things that she just got new information. And I also
Mhm.
I hate it in romances where they act like them living in different cities is like an insurmountable object. Like
Right.
they can never be in love because we have
Right.
to live in different places. I'm like, that
Yeah,
wouldn't stop anybody. Nobody.
for
You just move.
sure.
Who cares?
Yeah, for sure.
So that was pretty clever, I thought, that you
Thank
did.
you.
And did you feel like it being about this bake off, did that help you kind of integrate Christmas kind of authentically, naturally into the story?
Yeah, yeah, because I really loved the idea of having that tradition that brings the whole town together, because I think because in our town we do that. And so I really
Mm,
wanted to capture that magic of the community and all of Star Creek and what it stands for. And I felt like that was a really fun way, like you said, to bring the Christmas tradition in a way that just felt fun. Like I wanted the
uh-huh.
bake off to feel, I wanted readers to feel like, wow, I wish I could go to the bake off. I wish I could be in the town for that. So that was really the experience I was hoping to create. And I think Lucy and Will are hoping to create too in the book.
If you were entering the bake off, what would you make? What's your best recipe?
So I am not a good cook. I'm a better baker than cook. Baking is hit or miss. Sometimes I make really good stuff. Sometimes
Yeah.
I experiment too much and it's not great.
Ooh,
I
yeah, you
would
don't want to
say I make,
experiment with baking. That's
yeah,
risky.
I would say I make a pretty good chocolate chip cookie now. I've got that pretty much down. And
Yeah.
chocolate peanut butter cake is another thing I enjoy making.
Oh,
I love
yum.
to bake. It's just like I said, it's hit or miss. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's not.
That's funny. Your family's like,
Yeah, that's definitely it.
yeah.
It's risky at taking that first bite. Like, who's gonna be
Yeah.
the person? So
That's funny.
I do have on my goal list for the year. One of the things I wanted to do this year was learn how to make a really good pie. That's why I was asking if you
Mm.
have made pie. I
Yeah.
haven't tackled that yet. I'm running out of time, so I've got to get on that maybe in November to try and make it. I really want to make like a Dutch crumb pie. That's my
Oh, there you
goal.
go.
From scratch, no cheating. So we'll see how it goes. I'll have to keep everyone posted.
Hmm. I do make a really good cheesecake that
Oh,
has
that's good.
it's a three citrus cheesecake. And so it has lime,
Oh,
lemon, and
okay.
orange.
Oh, that
And
sounds
it's really
fancy. That
good.
sounds
Yeah.
good.
It's really, really, really good. My family, one of my best memories growing up was my two siblings that are closest to me. We did this a couple summers in a row. We did this cooking competition where we would insist that my parents would have to pick a winner, but they never did. And we spent like a lot of time like planning and
That's amazing.
preparing and everything. And we always had a theme for the competition. And
Uh-huh.
it was so smart of my parents because not only did they get all this delicious food, but we learned so many skills
Oh,
in
that's
doing
amazing.
this, like
That's
we
so
learned
fun.
how to make, like I learned how to make homemade pasta. I learned how to, just things
Yeah.
that we learned through doing it. And I had so many roommates growing up or I had so many roommates in college who couldn't barely make mac and cheese, like from a box
Right.
or heat a frozen pizza. I'm just like, how are you living? Like you know how to like make a like something. But anyway, and so it was always really fun. And that was one of my the 3 citrus cheesecake was one
Oh, that's
of mine.
awesome.
Yeah,
I love
for
it.
that. It was really, really fun. Yeah, so I might actually make the cheesecake if I had to. It's really good.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds like a good one.
And you could put like any kind of topping on top. So you could make it
Yeah.
Christmassy
Yeah, that would be so
if
cute.
you because yeah, it's a holiday bake off. So if you put like you could put cranberries on top,
Oh, that would be a good
you know?
idea. There you
Yeah.
go. You're ready.
Yeah, definitely. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
Well, we like to end our interviews with some fun get to know you questions.
Love it.
So you have the holiday editions, the holiday book. And
Okay.
the first question is, what's your favorite holiday drink?
Favorite holiday drink? I would have to say I have been on a cranberry and vodka drink.
Okay.
If I'm going
Uh-huh.
cocktails for the holiday, which I usually am, cranberry vodka is my drink of choice.
Very good. Definitely on theme. I could see that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. What's your favorite holiday cookie or treat?
So my favorite cookie, my grandma that I was talking about, she had this recipe for candy cane shortbread cookies. They're not actually mint. They're like a shortbread, but they're in the shape of a candy cane.
Oh, got
Nobody
it.
else in the family likes them. They think they're too plain, but I love them with coffee. Like I make them just so I can have them for breakfast. So that's my favorite.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah. All right. What's your favorite Christmas song or carol?
Oh, that's a hard one. I would have to say Silent Night. I think it's just a classic. It's so pretty. I've always loved that one.
It's a good one. Good one. All right. What's your favorite classic Christmas movie?
Oh, classic Christmas movie. I don't know if it's so much a classic, but it's kind of becoming a classic. Elf is my favorite. I want to watch it every holiday season. It is not my husband's favorite, but I'm going to watch it anyway. So that's definitely one of them.
Yeah, good choice. Love that. I mean, they just go for it. That's what makes it work.
It's just fun.
It's just really funny.
Yep,
Yeah.
fun.
You know what's funny too is that basically Elf and Enchanted are the same movie.
That's a good point. I never thought of that.
Yeah, they're basically the exact same plot.
Yeah. I will say I also love the Grinch, especially I actually like the newer Grinch, the cartoon one. I usually watch that in holiday season too. I think it's so cute.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay. Speaking of that, which do you like better, Scrooge or the Grinch?
The Grinch, for sure. Grinch. Okay. Yeah, that's yep.
Good. Which do you like better, clear lights or colored?
Clear lights. I'm a clear lights person.
Okay. Would you rather be in a snowball fight or build a snowman?
Build a snowman.
Okay.
Build a snowman. Snowball. I'm not coordinated, so building a snowman would probably be better for me.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself a good gift wrapper or not?
I think I am. My husband likes to make fun of me, and we kind of compete when we're wrapping gifts. He likes to say he's the better gift wrapper, but I think I am. I like to put cute little ornaments on it, which I think adds a little something to it. So yeah, definitely not great, but I think I'm pretty good.
Yeah. All right, last question. Do you have an ugly Christmas sweater?
Yes, I do. It is my favorite to wear. So I'm a teacher by day, and
Okay.
we always have special dress up days near the holidays. Ugly Christmas sweater day. I have this one that says Meowie Christmas, and it's got cats all over it. It's like green and red and got like tinsel on it. Favorite sweater to wear. It's very
Oh, that
comfy
sounds
too.
good.
I
Oh,
say
that's
that
good
every
because
year.
sometimes they're scratchy.
Yeah, no, this one is soft, comfy, and like I said, it has cats all over it on the Christmas tree. Wear it every year for Ugly Christmas Sweater Day.
Very good. Well, you did it. You answered all the questions.
Awesome. That was good. Those were
Yeah.
fun.
So if people want to follow you like on social media, all that fun stuff, how do they do that?
Yeah, they can find me at Lindsay Ann Detwiler on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. They can go to lindsaydetwiler.com, which is my website, where you can find all kinds of information. I do a little bit on TikTok at LA Detwiler, and my thriller side of things is also at LA Detwiler on all those platforms.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
And we'll have a link, a will affiliate link in the description. People can check out the Holiday Bake Off. And good luck with the book and everything. It was great to
Oh,
meet
thank
you.
you so much. It was so fun chatting with you. Thanks so much.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
I'd like to thank Lindsay for coming on the podcast. It was so much fun to get to talk with her. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Let me know in the comment section what you think about the different things we talked about. Make sure you check out that affiliate link. And you can follow me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. And make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews for us. It really, really helps us a lot. And especially this time of year, it could help the podcast so much. Please, please, please do that. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. Most of our viewers on YouTube are not subscribers. So if you're in that camp, please subscribe. It really, really would help us so much with the algorithm. And we also have the patron group. And that's the best way that you can support us and get to be a part of our watch-alongs and other fun experiences. So please take a look at that. And we have the merch store where we have some new holiday themed designs, holiday movie themed designs, Die Hard, Christmas Story, It's a Wonderful Life. Really fun. So please take a look at that. And thanks again to Lindsay. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.